Deputy Mayor Katz, Deputy Mayor G,
Here.
Mayor Began.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by resolution number 14-2023, sending a copy to the newspapers officially designated for 2023 by way of resolution number 2-2023, filing a copy in the township clerk's office and posting it on the municipal building bulletin board. And the mayor hereby directs that this statement be included in the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. Township Administration present at tonight's meeting are Dean Kaczynski, Township Manager, Doug Roussillon, Township Clerk, Kristen DeNorcha, Deputy Township Clerk, Thomas Rowe, Deputy Township Manager, Ron Goodman, Volunteer Cablecaster, Clarence Barnes, Municipal Building Manager, and John Shadanian from the law firm of Trenk, Isabel, Siddiqui, and Shadanian. For the public's information, we are currently holding a hybrid format meeting. We have people in person and on Zoom. If our Wi-Fi at the municipal building has an issue where the Zoom meeting drops, we will aim to retrieve the connection and restart the meeting. If we are unable to continue the Zoom meeting, this council meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. If attending this meeting in chambers, the CDC and New Jersey Health Department is recommending individuals wear face coverings indoors and in public spaces. If possible, please try to social distance. The next televised regular council meeting will take place on Tuesday, April 18th at 6:30 p.m. for closed session and 8 p.m. for public session. Council just met in closed session to discuss the following: a DPW update, advisory boards, legal issues and opinions regarding items on the open session agenda, litigation updates, and Oprah. The next order of business is presentations, and we have FDU in the house. We are so incredibly proud of. Mr. Manager, will you please join me down there to present these certificates?
Basketball, Coach Castleberry, and replaced Coach Tobin, who brought FDU to a 21-16 overall record this year, Division I basketball. I played D1 baseball at FDU back in 81, 82. So again, you put FDU back on the map. And just a little quick history with the NCAA tournament, the big dance. FDU beat Texas Southern and then went on to beat #1 ranked Purdue in their bracket before losing to Florida Atlantic, who actually made it to the Final Four. So some very stiff competition, but again, you put TNEC on the map. You made us all proud here. We're looking for a great season out of you and the students next year. I'm sure you'll make it back in the dance, and we're so appreciative. The mayor has a few proclamations, certifications we'd like to present to you. Yes, you can take that for the women's team. And, yes, and let me just open up one of these. That's for Lawrence. Hold on to that one here. And this really went out to all the players, the coaching staff, and we'll just read one of them. TNEC Township Council Certificate of Recognition. This one went to Ainsley Almanor for helping bring Fairleigh Dickinson to the 2023 March Madness and continuing to put TNEC New Jersey on the map. Of course, this is signed by all of council, but this is for the entire team, coaching staff. Again, we're very appreciative. And Coach would like to say a few words.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'd just like to thank everybody for the support. We're extremely proud to be an integral part of TNEC, and we continue to hope we can make you guys proud on a regular basis. We bring in incredible kids. FDU is a phenomenal place full of special people. And we're looking forward to getting out in the community ourselves through community service initiatives to give back, because we got a ton of support this year and we could not be more thankful for it. But thank you guys for having us today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, I just want to say, thanks for giving us bragging rights. It meant a lot. And, just really proud of the, young men and women and the great work that they did.
Thank you.
Yeah, I could not be more proud of you as a TNEC resident. I also went to Princeton, so I was proud of them as well. You did New Jersey proud. And many of you may not know, I played varsity basketball, college basketball, but at the University of Cape Town, where it was very easy to make the team. So it wasn't that good. But basketball holds a place very special and near and dear to my heart. So thank you for all you do.
I just want to say thank you. It was so exciting. My dad called me. He was like, you have to turn on the news right now. I'm so excited. So I just want to say we were so proud of you, and so it was so exciting, and you guys did amazing. So thank you.
The night of your last game, social media blew up in town and everybody was talking about it. And it really makes us feel so good when we see the good in town and the things that bring us together. I love your offer to get involved in the township. I am sure we're going to take you up on that.
Yeah.
But it's really nice to have heroes here. So thank you very much.
Councilman Schwartz, any words to share to our?
Yes, thank you very much for a great season. I went to the watch show. It was great. And I went to a few games last year where there was no one there. So it was really good to see that gym pack. So thank you very much.
Hopefully we can change that, get a few more people there. That'd be great. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Congratulations one more time to FDU. We are so happy for you. And we have one more presentation, Mr. Manager. It comes as a result of, I attended the Senior Citizen Advisory Board, most recent Senior Citizen Advisory Board meeting, and they had a few questions, and this was one of them. Do you mind taking the lead, sir?
Sure, absolutely. Here tonight, we have our OEM coordinator, Larry Robertson. We have our fire chief, Joe Birchtold here, just to speak a little bit about rail emergencies. We spend a lot of time, especially with the recycling calendar we put out every year. We dedicate, I believe it's 3 pages to rail car emergencies. It's an important topic with everything going on around town, but rest assured, the town is well prepared, well trained. We bring, Larry and Joe, Chief Birchtold, bring decades of experience. For those that don't know Larry, he spent 25, 30 years, Larry, in the fire department, 25 in the fire department. Chief Birchtold has spent now 30 plus on the fire department. So we have decades of experience. The fire department trains regularly. We do have some tabletops planned, especially with the Board of Ed coming up. So I will turn this over to Larry Robertson, and Larry can speak a little bit about what we do and how prepared we are in town.
We've been aware of possible serious consequences of a train wreck since I was a little kid. I remember when I was about 10 years old, the city manager at the time, who was Warner Schmidt, sent a letter to everybody in Teaneck warning them that carloads of hydrogen cyanide were going up the rails. And as a little kid, my parents made sure that if there's a train wreck, just run as far as I can, as fast as I can. So we've been aware of it. What we have now is we have an action plan that includes the need to evacuate everyone within 2,500 feet of a train wreck. That's assuming that it's a serious train wreck. It's assuming that there's a hazardous cargo, which is a pretty good assumption. The amount of crude oil going by is greatly reduced, or even possibly now even eliminated, but we still have trains 100 cars long filled with industrial alcohol. We see that all the time. We have trains that are thousands and thousands of gallons of acid, and the mixed freights can have anything on them. They have propane, they have butane, they have chlorine, they have anhydrous ammonia, they have vinyl chloride, a lot of bad actors. So the plan is, if we get a train wreck that appears to have either released the hazardous material or is possibly going to release a hazardous material, we're going to make public announcements to get the people that are within 2,500 feet away from the railroad tracks. We have different means of doing that. We have outdoor siren speakers that make a siren sound and then make a canned voice announcement. And we have Nixle, and we have reverse 911, and we have the public address functions on fire, police, and ambulance vehicles. The biggest thing that people ask is, how about evacuation routes? Well, the evacuation routes for a train wreck are easy. If the train wreck's that way, you run that way. You can't, because the rails through Teaneck are 3 miles long, you can't make a fixed plan for evacuation. Because the train wreck could be by the Bergenfield border, it could be by State Street, it could be by Cedar Lane, it could be by the Pagoda border. So we have, aerial photographs and an overlay that we can slide along the tracks and find where the evacuation has to take place. Currently, we're doing refresher training. The ambulance corps is planning a big drill. Teaneck Volunteer Ambulance Corps is planning a big drill. So I've had the pleasure of giving them refresher training on this, although they've had it before. And right now I'm going through the fire department platoons. I just finished 2 of the 4 platoons this afternoon. And we offer this training to the public too. It hasn't happened lately, unfortunately. But we'll go even to a little informal neighborhood group and give the same presentation. So hopefully we can encourage some people to do that. And because by state law, we have to have a emergency operating plan that's renewed every 3 years, we make sure that we include this hazard as well as the other hazards that we might face in that plan and update it accordingly.
And Mayor, that's why it's so important. I say this often for residents to sign up for emergency alerts. Again, if you go onto the TNEC webpage at tnecnj.gov, on the left-hand side, you'll see a tab to sign up for emergency alerts. Again, that's the reverse 911, the Nixle messaging, blast emails. Again, we do have that mass notification system. We do have 10 siren towers in town. We're working on an 11th that we need to put north, Larry.
Yeah, Ward Plaza area.
Ward Plaza area, just to make sure we have effective coverage. And I just want the chief to speak a little bit about the resources he has and the training he does to prepare for any type of rail emergency. Chief.
Good evening, council residents. So the Teaneck Fire Department is well aware and has been well aware of any type of train hazard. The good thing is the town has actually planned very well in advance by not having any grade crossings. That helps to eliminate any possible train derailment. The closest grade crossing is fortunately New Bridge Road. So we are aware of that. That's a hot spot. If you look at most of these train accidents that occur across the United States, they occur in either rail crossings, grade crossings, or switching. The other thing that happens is most of them occur in industrial settings. Very few occur out like the one in Palestine, Ohio, occur in a town. And if they do, and when they do, there's generally almost no fatalities. Although it makes public news, yes, there is toxic gas released. The last one that occurred in New Jersey was in 2012 in Paulsboro, New Jersey, and it was vinyl chloride leak, about 32,000 gallons. It did affect some people. Yes, there will be some people that have health or emergency issues with it, but all in all, the issues with rail and rail derailments and train is not this huge. Teaneck's not going to be wiped off the map. So in addition to that, the county and the fire service, more importantly, has taken and gone to great lengths and great steps to prepare for this. For example, we're part of what they call the UASI initiative, which is the Northern Area Security Initiative. By being a part of that and training with all those different agencies in the northern part of the state, it also affords us to be in a task force. So regardless of where the incident occurs, New Jersey, somewhere in the northern part, whether it be Kearney, Teaneck, Pagoda, we're going to respond. We've had training. We train yearly in this group. The other thing that you have in your disposal is a 35,000 gallon foam tanker sitting in fire headquarters. Should an emergency occur, that is available to be used immediately. Unlike most other municipalities, there's only 2 of those tankers in Bergen County. Each of the northern counties got 2, Teaneck being one of them, the other one's located in Garfield. So we have regionalized training throughout the state with that asset, with the resources. The state of New Jersey has taken great steps in preparing for this. They have what they call a Neptune system. It's literally a 12-inch hose, over a mile long of hose with a pumping system and a nozzle. Should a massive fire break out, that would be available, would be able to be deployed within an hour. We also do mutual aid within the county, all the various towns. We're part of the county plan. So should an event occur within the matter of minutes, you're going to have a massive amount of resources here from the fire service and containing the fire, more importantly, evacuating. And that, as the manager spoke and as Larry spoke, that's the biggest thing here. When an event like this occurs, the residents have to be prepared. They should read their recycling manual and the pages which describe how and what they need to be prepared to leave or evacuate. And they need to heed the warning and evacuate to the borders, going out in both directions of the railroad tracks as quick as possible. And then the issue will be contained. It will be unfortunately discomforting if it ever, knock on wood, if this ever does happen for a couple of weeks, and then the cleanup will start and life will eventually go back to normal. So there is really we should rest the fears of any residents. This is not something, we have to be mindful of it. We have to be concerned about it. We can't take it lightly, but we shouldn't be, running around like a chicken without a head. It's not that bad, and we've prepared very well for it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Dean, do you want to say anything before I open it up to questions from the council members?
Yeah, quickly, there's 11 municipalities that run along the river line. Again, I'm not biased because I'm working here in Teaneck and our fire chief is here, but I think we're the best prepared of those 11 towns and have the best resources available. I'm also trying to coordinate a meeting, and I just received contact from CSX to set up a meeting with the 11 municipalities along the river line, Congressman Gottheimer, CSX, again, just to discuss this, put it back on the table, resources that CSX would provide in the event of a rail accident. So I'm hoping to get that put together within the next 30 days.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, gentlemen. Deputy Mayor G.
Yeah, I did have one question. So given our current knowledge of the cargo that these trains hold, do we know worst case scenario, if there were a large fire explosion, how far out that could extend? Like what would be the width of the damage, worst case scenario?
Okay. You got to make a distinction between exactly what we're talking about. If there's a train derailment of serious nature, it's a 40% chance that there'll be something spilled. It could be milk, but it could be industrial alcohol or flammable liquids. Then there's a chance that it might ignite. And then there's a pool fire on the ground. Now, that's a pretty serious matter because there'll be a lot of heat generated.
Right.
But the worst thing is that pool fire is getting up underneath other tank cars that aren't leaking, and it's making them boil inside, and eventually they're going to break open. So we have about a 10 to 15 minute window of opportunity to get about 8,000 people out of the way. There's about 8,000 people per square mile, and the circle that we draw is about a square mile.
Square mile.
We have to also consider the fire, the explosion hazard, which is separate. And we also have to deal with toxic gases. So all of those can vary by weather, it can vary by the material that's on fire, it can vary by the time of day as far as evacuating people. Could it be a big fire? Yes, it could. Could it have enough explosive force to knock down buildings? Yes, close to the tracks. I'm not talking about a mile away. So we would expect within that half-mile circle, if we have the tank cars start blowing up, there's going to be casualties. There's going to be pretty heavy damage. And we have the cell phone system will probably be knocked out right away because most of the cell towers are within the 2,500-foot circles. And probably electric power is going to go down too, because the transmission lines that bring the power from the generating station in Ridgefield to the substations here in Teaneck and the other towns run along the railroad tracks in many cases. So we'd have to plan for that too.
Denise?
Yes, I just want to say that I think it's very important that we address these things, and I think it's very important that our town manager does, hold these meetings with these 11 other townships so that we can have, evacuation procedures and so forth. Now, I just had a quick question. You mentioned in your presentation that there is training. Is that like training to people that live within that 2,500 radius?
Yes, we initially about 5 years ago, we held classes. We sent out certified letters to all of the daycare centers, educational facilities, churches, synagogues, mosques, any concentration of people, especially those who might have more mobility issues that are within the evacuation circles. And we held numerous meetings, sometimes in the day, sometimes at night. And we got about 95% compliance where somebody from one of those facilities came. We also offered it to the public, and some people that just on their own came. The problem is when COVID occurred, that program was extinguished. So it would be good to revive it, but probably the best thing we could do is to produce a video that we could mail out.
Good
And
idea.
then, of course, people could always, they could, if somebody says, me and my neighbors want to know about this, we live on Carlton Terrace. Okay, where can we meet? And we have a meeting right there. It's available, it's doable. What we need is people to be motivated to ask for it.
Thank you.
Anybody else on council have a question? Karen?
My question was going to be if CSX has reached out to you guys, and I'm really glad that you've reached out on behalf of the 11 towns to ask them to come. I know they're not always the best partners to work with, but if there's anything we can do to hold them accountable or get them in here, I think we should.
Hillary?
They have over the years provided training to the fire department. They've sent members at no cost to the township to Pueblo, Colorado for flammable liquids and hazardous material train car accidents and fires. They've also held tabletop exercises for all the 11 towns up and down the rail line up at the Bergen County Law and Public Safety Office. It hasn't been a couple years since they've done it, but it was going on at one point.
Hillary?
I just have two questions. The evacuation plan, I know it's in the recycling calendar. Is it on the website? Can we put it on the website just for ease also? And then
It's
the,
on there.
it is?
Yeah, it's on there.
Okay, thank you. And the training video, is that something that can be, again, put online or through the library? Just, somebody can just get on themselves, like without having to set up a meeting, or is that wondering? Just
Right now, we're just in the conceptual planning stages of making a video that will get mailed out. I've asked for technical assistance, which I've been assured that I'll get, and then we'll do it.
thank you.
And you guys would be willing to talk to the Senior Citizen Advisory Board if they wanted to invite you in? All right, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Sorry, Debbie, we can't do any public until Good and Welfare. Let's see. The next order of we got to stick to the agenda. There's no, if you want to talk to him right now, please feel free to, he's a sweetheart. Debbie, I'm sorry, I can't. We got to keep going forward with the agenda, but if you want to talk to him right now, please feel free to go out there and talk to him. He's a good guy and he'll answer any questions. And so is the fire chief. The next order of business is work session items, miscellaneous. Does anyone on council have anything for miscellaneous? No? Next order of business is old business, request for proposals. Mr. Manager, I think we just wanted to know if they went out. They went out on Thursday, correct? The RFQs for engineering and legal?
Yes, they did. They're both out. I believe the return date is April 14th. When we receive them, the purchasing agent will ensure compliance and then turn them over to me, and then the personnel committee can certainly meet and we can set up dates to do the interviews.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Does anyone on council have any questions for the manager about this? No? The next order of business is new business. Does anyone have any new business they want to bring up? Denise?
The whole idea of the ADUs that we spoke about. And
Yeah,
yes,
I
I'd
reached
like
out to the organization that handles that. They're still supposed to send us a draft ordinance and/or.
Okay.
Yeah, do you mind talking about it for a couple of minutes though?
Certainly. Okay, so as an alternate on the zoning board at our last meeting that I was able to attend and cover, I made a recommendation that we explore the issue, the possibility of alternative housing sources within our township. We all know that we are in a affordable housing crisis in our state, in our country. So there are ADU units that have been utilized in towns like Princeton. Also in California has passed laws that enable ADUs, which is just alternative dwelling units, where people essentially, some people think of them as tiny homes or taking their 2-car garage and converting them. But it also encompasses things like looking at affordability in terms of basement dwelling, but making them safe. And our zoning officers were here and they are exploring the possibilities. We're looking at potential zoning ordinances where towns like Princeton have utilized ways in which they've brought about ADU units. So we're in an exploratory place right now. And our mayor is helping to look at how we can potentially look at other model towns that are doing this and doing this well. So this is just another way of looking at alternative housing that we can potentially consider for our township.
Yeah, and I reached out to the Regional Plan Association, which is an advocacy group that pushes this. Her name is Zoe Baldwin. She's the government affairs coordinator, and she's supposed to send us a draft ordinance or resolution that we could look at, and then we can tweak, and then we can run it by legal, our manager, and everybody on council to see if everybody's okay with pursuing something like that going forward. But thank you for bringing that up, and I'll follow up with her again tomorrow. Let's see. Anything else in our new business? Nobody? All right, the next order of business is communications, and this actually also came from the Senior Citizen Advisory Board meeting that I attended. Mr. Roosevelt Sills was kind enough to share it with us. It's a letter from the Northeast Teaneck Block Presidents Association, and they had questions about the improvements and benches that we were adding to Brooks Park, and that then led into another discussion on other benches that we might be putting throughout the township. Mr. Manager, if you don't mind talking about that briefly.
I have that in my manager's report. We're gonna
Oh,
order
okay.
13 benches. 4 will be at Brooks, and then we have others going in at Barry. I'll cover that as part of my manager's report.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Does anybody else have anything for communications? No. Next order of business is committee reports by council liaisons. Deputy Mayor G.
Just wanted to share that the Personnel Subcommittee met last Monday. We interviewed about 20 candidates for open positions on our advisory boards. And we are in the middle of vetting those interviews, and we actually may conduct a second round of interviews since there were about, I want to say 10 to 20 more applicants who were not available for the first round of interviews. So that was it in a nutshell.
All right, I have two quick things, advisory board reports, though. Like I said earlier, I attended the most recent Senior Citizen Advisory Board meeting, and they asked about the Phelps Park pathway, water testing at local splash pads, upcoming ribbon cuttings, and evacuation contingency plans on the rail line, which we just discussed with our fire chief and our OEM coordinator. And we are addressing all of their concerns, which is why we had our fire chief and the OEM coordinator come in. Also, let's see, they talked about Brooks Park, which the manager is going to talk about. I also attended the most recent Hackensack River Greenway Advisory Board meeting, and they had questions about river trails along Indian Pond, the municipal access plan, the New Bridge Landing Commission, FDU's river pathway, and drainage pipes at Camperton Down. And we are working to address all those concerns and questions with our manager. Anybody have anything else? No? All right. Next order of business is council listed items, and there's nothing listed. Nobody have anything? All right, moving along. Mr. Manager, the floor is yours for the
Sure.
Township Manager's Report.
Thank you so much. I have a few things to cover. One of the first things I want to just quickly talk about, we had a Moody's rating poll on Friday. It was myself, the CFO, our Phoenix advisor, auditor, and a representative from Moody's, and we'll know where we're at on or about April 10th. We'll have the report. But he did say some very favorable, made some very favorable comments about Teaneck, which we were very, very happy about to hear. He considers Teaneck a very stable community, strong development, the proximity to New York City, and the strength of our residents' income. So those are all things that come into play with this. So I'm confident we'll retain our AA rating, but we will have that report on or about April 10th. Moving on, we're going to be advertising very shortly. Joanne Simaluka and I have been working on this advertisement for a small business outreach coordinator, and they will work out of basically my office, and they'll be going around to every business located in town, again, to make sure they're aware of all the services that the county offers for small businesses. So I'm excited about that program. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a real benefit to our business owners, and hopefully they'll take advantage of it, but we're going to hit every single business in Teaneck, which is good. I am going to order tomorrow the environmental resource inventory. So we have monies encumbered from 2022. So I will order that tomorrow. And that will be done by the Land Conservancy of New Jersey. That should be done. That should take her, I guess, about a month or two to complete. So we'll get that done and out of the way. Regarding the fire truck, ladder truck, Chief Burchtold and I had a good conversation, and he did some research since Thursday's budget meeting, and the ladder truck will increase. He spoke to the major manufacturers of the ladder truck, and that's Pierce, E1, Seagraves, and Sufin. And it looks like, again, our truck, if we order it this year, the ladder truck, again, will be between 1.8 and $2 million. We won't get the final cost until we actually spec out the truck. But all these manufacturers did tell him to anticipate a 15 to 20% increase the following year if it's ordered in 2024. So I just wanted to bring that to council's attention. We also successfully submitted our congressional appropriation request, and that's for $700, and that will cover a large drainage project on Old Newbridge Road, and that goes to the office of Senator Menendez, Booker, and Congressman Gottheimer. So it'll take a couple months before we hear anything, but we did submit that project through the congressional grant. We submitted our FEMA staffing for adequate fire and safety response, otherwise known as the SAFER grant, and that would be for funding of 4 firefighters, and basically it would pay the salary for 4 years, which would be a big help. And this is for Laverne Lightburn. I just wanted to let her know that the light was ordered. I signed the contract with PSE&G, so if it's not up already, they should be installing that light at the southern end of Anna Street. Park benches, what I brought up before, we're going to be ordering 13 new park benches. They're going to be placed in Ammon Park, Andreas, Coolidge, Hawthorne, Sagamore, Tiyun, and Brooks Park. Brooks will get 4, so probably take a month or two to get in, but we should have the requisition in very shortly, which will be nice. We recently received notification from the County of Bergen, Engineering and Roads Department, that Cedar Lane now it's going to take 1 to 2 years before Cedar Lane is resurfaced, and that will be between the Hackensack border and Teaneck Road. So definitely not in 2023, probably in 2024. We're going to hold another bicycle auction this year. That's going to be on Friday, May 19th, the afternoon of Friday, May 19th. This year, we only have 30 bicycles. I believe there's a resolution on tonight for it, but we will auction those 30 bicycles off on May 19th. Due to some recent garbage complaints, I've directed Mr. Romeo from Public Works to have the sweeper crew come in an hour earlier, so they're going to be going up and down Cedar Lane most mornings at about 6 a.m. in the morning, and making sure that that road is kept fairly clean. We have proposals to resurface the path at Phelps Park, and that will be to put a new asphalt path along, really from the tennis court area to the roadway just east. And we're also going to create a new path, asphalt path, that will lead to the new bathrooms that we put in last year. That path desperately needs to be renovated, and we'll get that done soon as well. We're installing 2 historical markers tomorrow. We have several others that need to be installed on private property. And we really have to work with these homeowners. There's about 6 or 7 of them, Doug, I believe, that really don't want the marker on their property. We have the markers, so I think I'm going to have to make a visit to their homes and speak to them and see if they'll be agreeable for the mounting of the markers. Tiyun Park dedication was done last Friday. Great event. The park looks great. Makes me want to be a kid again. We have an upcoming senior health and resource fair, and that's sponsored by Holy Name Hospital in the township of Teaneck. This takes place free of charge on Wednesday, April 26th from 9 a.m. to noon. And this is at the Rhoda Center. This is a great event. They do all sorts of health screenings, including blood pressures, BMI, weight, stroke risk assessments, diabetes risk assessments, fall risk, cancer support, insurance counseling, and there's going to be representatives from various community resources on hand. That's going to have valuable information for anyone that's in attendance. I gave 2 conditional offers of employment to 2 alternate route police officer candidates that are currently in in training. They're due to graduate sometime in June. Again, the alternate route candidates are very beneficial to us because once they get out of the academy after a 8 to 12 week field training program, they're out on their own. We recertified a new police officer list that just came out. We certified 25 names and we're hoping to hire, 5 candidates off of that list as well. If we do hire, we find 5 eligibles, they'll go into the July Police Academy class and they'll finish hopefully the end of December, graduate successfully, hopefully the end of December. But they will not be on the road by themselves probably until April of 2024. Motor Vehicle Commissioner of New Jersey reached out to me. As you know, we have a scheduled date coming up within 5 minutes after publishing that link for people to register and sign up. All the spots were filled. However, MVC reached out to me. They like our location. They want to set up several more dates. I should have those dates very shortly from them. As soon as I do, I will put it out to the public, to our residents, along with the link. They do the real ID. They're limited to how many they can do for the time period they're there. But I think we're one of the only municipalities that they like coming back to. And at the very least, they'll be here twice this year, probably close to 6 after I get the new dates from them. So as soon as I get that, I'll put the information out to everyone. I'm going to be presenting Teaneck Southern Little League with their new AED, and that will be on April 15th, Saturday, April 15th. The opening day last Saturday was rained out. I'm also going to be giving TBO their new AED on Monday night for their opening game. That's April 17th. So if anyone from council wishes to join, please be there. And again, I want to recognize the Youth Advisory Board, and they were instrumental in kind of lighting a fire for us getting new AEDs. We have 3 additional ones that will be housed at fire headquarters, and we have a policy in place, and they'll be available to sports organizations to sign out. So we just purchased 5, but we already had a bunch at the Sportsplex already, but giving one to TBO, Teaneck Southern, and having 3 additional ones for any other sports organization that needs, it's going to be a tremendous help. And these are units that both the police and fire have and are equipped with, so they're the same ones, so everyone's familiar with how to use it. And TVAC has graciously volunteered to give anyone training that needs it in the AED. And I think we're going to have Yeb here next meeting to recognize them on the 18th, at the 18th council meeting. Appraisal System sent out their first letter and brochure to all the residents. Again, just to advise them of the imminent start to the revaluation project. There's going to be 2 public meetings that are going to take place, and we'll be publishing information very shortly. That's on April 27th and May 25th from 7 to 9 p.m. That's going to take place at the Richard Rota Center. If anyone has any questions about the revaluation process, please call our tax assessor at the main line 837-1600. His extension is 1401, James Ty. Again, anyone can reach out to him if you have any questions about the revaluation process. Recycling Depot is on a modified schedule this week due to the municipal holidays. So they will be open and accepting recyclable materials tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 2:45 p.m. Thursday, the same time. Friday, they're closed. Saturday, they'll be open from 7 to 2:45, and Sunday they are closed. Yesterday, we just received a shipment, and it was installed. They call it a military and lasting memorial, and that was installed on the municipal green. Scott Pleasance was very instrumental in getting this done. His son's name is on that memorial, and we'll do a special dedication on Memorial Day. And I'm happy to report that I appointed John Adams to regular membership, and also Hildy Dillon as an alternate member to the Environmental Commission. And our DPW superintendent is attending a class to be certified as a licensed tree expert. That's a step above arborist. So we'll be in good shape once Mr. Surmabikian is done with our tree inspections. And that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there anyone on council who has a question for Dean? Danielle?
Yeah, I just had one question about the historical markers. Can you elaborate about what they are and why we're putting them on the property.
Doug is the expert on this, but we have, we purchased, what, about 8 or 10 of them, Doug, altogether?
It might have been 10 to 12. This lot that was purchased was originally allocated for in capital all the way back in 2018. They were worked on before that by our Historic Preservation Commission. And what these markers were for was to commemorate our different allocated historic properties in the township, which for the most part are these stone houses that are privately owned with folks living inside of them. So naturally, the plan is to put them into the right of way, but the township doesn't want to do that without the homeowner supporting it at least a little bit. We did reach out to them.
Thank
And-
you.
But we'll make
Yeah.
another in-person visit. I'll get to that, I think, next week.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Hillary, and then Denise.
Just a quick, ask us the budget, since it's where we're at right now, it's so much lower. Is it possible to get that information on the website so the public can take a look at it before we vote on it, even before it's in the agenda, just so there's time?
John, do you see any problem with putting that information on the website, that it's not voted on yet?
It's the proposed budget.
Yes. Okay.
The
Okay,
answer is no. Yeah, problem.
okay.
Thank you.
Denise.
Yeah, I just want to add to the historic markers. The Historic Preservation Commission has really put together a very good interactive map of our township. It's very, very comprehensive in that it shows all of our historic properties throughout town. And so definitely it's something that people would probably want to take a look at. And I think our township clerk is talking about a place to place it on our website so that essentially others can avail themselves of it. But it's great for when people are visiting, or if you're hosting like a family reunion and people want to kind of see our town, you can actually go to this map and it highlights all of our historic locations throughout the town. It's really nice.
Anybody else have any questions for Dean? No? The next order of business is the Township Attorney's Report. Mr. Shedanian?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Other than what was discussed today in closed session, I have nothing new to report.
Thank you, Mr. Shedanian. The next order of business is formal meeting items. Our public hearing and adoption of ordinances. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the titles of ordinances into the record?
Yes, indeed, Mayor. For second reading this evening, first up, we have ordinance number 10-2023, amending Article 29 of Chapter 2 of the Township Code, abolishing the Municipal Ethics Board. We have ordinance number 16-2023, amending Section 36-14 of Division 2 of Article 2 of Chapter 36 entitled Traffic of the Township Code to prohibit parking on both sides of a portion of Hudson Road. And ordinance number 17-2023, amending Article 1 of Chapter 36 entitled Traffic of the Township Code to add Section 36-2.5, restricting right-hand turns on red.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Does anyone on council have any comments or questions prior to the opening of the public hearing? Karen?
A bunch of the neighbors on Hudson and Maitland reached out. They're away for the holiday and they asked if we could table it. So I'd like to make a motion to table 16-2023 until the May 23rd meeting. That's the second meeting in May.
Second Schwartz.
All right, Mr. Clerk, we have a first and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilman Schwartz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Belcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilwoman Organ,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Oh, sorry. Deputy Mayor G,
Yes.
Mayor Begon.
Yes.
You got it.
Does anyone else on council have any questions or comments before we open up the public hearing? No? Okay, the public hearing on these ordinances are now open. Any member of the public wishing to be heard on any of these ordinances or who wants to ask any questions concerning these ordinances may come forward and please state their names for the record. Comments and or questions shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak on any of these ordinances? Seeing no hands, Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Indeed, Mayor. Indeed, Mayor. I'm bringing in Hildy Dillon.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Can you raise the volume, please?
Yeah, hang on one second, Ms. Dillon.
Okay,
We just have to hit a couple buttons on our end here. Give me a check 1, 2, Hildy.
1, 2.
A little louder, Vaughn. 1 second, Hildy, sorry. Give me a count to 5, please.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That sounds great.
5. Okay, all right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Hildy Dillon, and I have lived here in Teaneck since 1986, going on more than 33 years. And I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of One Town, One Vote in reference to ordinance number 10, 2023, which proposes to abolish the township's municipal ethics board and repeal its code entirely. One Town, One Vote really urges the council to table this resolution until there's been adequate, meaningful dialogue with the public. The question of whether the ethics board should be abolished is complicated, and it is also very important. It goes directly to the issues of transparency and good governance that are the heart of democracy. There appear to be compelling arguments on both sides of the issue, favoring centralized state control of potential ethics violations on the one hand, and favoring decentralized local control on the other. The primary concern of One Town, One Vote is the apparent haste with which this ordinance has been introduced to the public. It's been well established that the Township Ethics Board has not been functional for many years. But now, since our new council was voted in November, and they're making incredible progress in increasing transparency and openness related to our other advisory boards. So why the sudden rush to shut this one down? Especially since several residents have recently volunteered to serve on the board, and a lively debate regarding the pros and cons of abolishing it has cropped up on social media. An immediate decision to shut down the ethics board seems especially rash given the passage of the Election Transparency Act, which was signed into law by Governor Murphy just yesterday. This legislation is intended to expose the role of dark money in elections, but there were several key compromises in the bill that weaken other campaign finance rules that have been a particular concern for Teaneck in recent years, including rules related to pay for play and cutting back the powers of the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission. In short, the law may make it more important than ever to reconstitute and reinvigorate the ethics board rather than abolish it. Considering this critical development, we urge the council to table the ordinance until more dialogue between the council and the public can take place, and we all have a clearer sense of what the implications of this new law are. Given that the Township Ethics Board has not been functioning well for so many years, a few months delayed to gather more information about the best path forward can possibly be harmful. So we're asking you to please table the ordinance tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon. Doug, is there anybody else on Zoom?
Yes, indeed. I'm bringing in Chuck Powers.
Dr. Powers, the floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, Council. I want to follow up and actually support almost every word that we just heard from Ms. Dillon. But I want to link it much more directly than she did to the extraordinary events of last week when both the Senate and then the Assembly passed something that is called the Election Transparency Act of 2023. And it, in fact, is a law that radically undermines much of the rules governing issues associated with ethics in the state, and certainly the institutional mechanisms by which they're supposed to be carried out, particularly in relationship to the Election Law Enforcement Commission, which is basically now moribund until Mr. Murphy by himself can reappoint the whole crowd. There's no question but what sending the all the election complaints on issues related to conflicts of interest and disclosure to the state is likely to seriously delay issues. It's also true that we have a terrible record, really since 1990, in making an ethics board function here in town. But the landscape that was just recreated about everything related to ethics in this state really needs to be examined. Teaneck, in the very early years of this century, took the lead on doing pay-to-play legislation, which was then carried out effectively, as your mayor knows better than any, because he was the campaign manager for Jim Tedesco, who fought very hard to bring the same kind of pay-to-play rules to the state, to the county that had been implemented here in Teaneck. Maybe Teaneck, if it had its own ethics board, could again play a role of trying to sort of reestablish the structures of what should be an allowable pathway for dealing with all of the ethics issues that are encountered by all of our officials. It's very important. I'm not suggesting that sending the issue to Trenton is necessarily wrong, but we need to take a very good look, and this new council needs to take a very good look at whether it's possible to put together the kind of leadership on ethics that the township played early in the century on pay to play. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Powers. Is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak on this? No, Mr. Clerk, anybody on Zoom?
Bringing in Vincent Bravetti. Please silence or mute your phones. Thank you. Vincent Bravetti. There you are. Please unmute.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I'm premature. I don't have a comment on this particular issue. I have a different issue.
This is the public session for just these ordinances, sir. So unless you want to speak on these three ordinances we were talking about, please patiently wait until our good and welfare session.
I shall. Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else on Zoom, Doug? Anybody in chambers, Mr. Abbott?
Tom Abbott, Teaneck. As probably all of you know, I believe that the ethics board should be abolished. And I've been talking about that for the last 7 years, ever since I discovered that there was legislation pending, which no longer is, to abolish all municipal ethics boards and the various problems with municipal ethics boards. But I'd like to talk about issues that were raised today. First of all, the issue of the bill that's the misnomer called transparency. I don't remember the rest of it. It's a truly obnoxious bill that's designed, if anything, to limit transparency, but it has absolutely nothing to do with ethics boards. New Jersey Elect doesn't handle the same as a totally different jurisdiction than the local finance board, which would handle ethics complaints in Teaneck if the ethics board was abolished. I'm trying to, my notes are terrible. There's talk about how we've had no functional board since 1990. Until about 2016, we've had a 6-member board. They may not have done anything. They told me they hadn't had any complaints since 1993. And actually in 2016, 1 member resigned who was never replaced. They went along with 5 members and 4 members, but they've almost always had a quorum until Heidi Fuchs resigned recently, and they're now down to 3. There's also talk about people having volunteered. I hear that there's a bunch of people who have volunteered. The people who are promoting keeping the ethics board have been running around asking people to fill out applications, even if they're not interested in the ethics board, just to give the impression that there's a lot of interest. I think if you would look through the applications, you would find they're all Democrats. And that's only significant because you're only allowed 3 Democrats out of 6 on the ethics board. And it would leave you 3 short. I believe the only recent appointee who is an employee is also a registered Democrat. So only 2 of them. I think they're planning to weaponize the board, and they don't understand that the board is supposed to act in total confidentiality. Anyway,
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Anybody else in chambers wishing to speak on any of these ordinances? Doug, anybody on Zoom?
Bring in Michael Klatsky.
Hey, good evening. I'm I'm calling in tonight to
Can
speak
you raise the
about.
volume? Sorry, Mr. Klatsky.
Yeah.
Can you raise your volume, please, sir?
I guess, does my mic have volume? Maybe. Can you
Give
hear
us
me
a
better?
check. Give me a check 1, 2, Mike.
Check 1, 2. Can you hear
All right,
me?
that sounds good. As you were, sir.
Okay, so discussing ordinance 10 of 2023. I'm calling in support of that particular ordinance. Generally speaking, local ethics boards cannot perform the functions that they need to do, and I don't personally buy the discussion that the administrative state in Trenton cannot impartially make a determination on a situation that would arise in an ethics circumstance. Okay, that's item number 1 that I want to discuss with the council tonight and to everyone at large. The second one is ordinance number 16 of 2023, where there's going to be prohibited parking on Hudson Road. This ordinance, this is the latest in a string of bad ordinances. You should stop restricting parking based off of what a few residents think on their particular block. You kind of end up with a tragedy of the commons situation where what's beneficial for 5 neighbors on one particular street could end up severely harming the neighborhood at large. Parking should really be done on a neighborhood level, and restricting parking because 1 or 2 neighbors don't want to put in sidewalks is hardly a reason to do that. This is something that should be looked at holistically.
Mr. Klatsky? Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that measure has been tabled.
Got it. Okay. Was it?
Until May 23rd, the May 23rd council meeting.
We'll talk again. Have a great night, everybody, and happy
Thank you, Mr.
holidays.
Klatsky. Doug, is there anyone else on Zoom? Is there anyone in chambers that want to discuss these 2 ordinances? Seeing no hands, public hearing is closed. Does anyone on council want to say anything? Hillary?
Yes, please. So the preamble of our ethics board in section 2-146 is clear about its purpose. Quote, public office and employment are a public trust. So just the proper operation and democratic government requires that local government officials and employee be independent, impartial, and responsible to the people. That all government decisions and policies be made in the channels of the government structure. That public office not be used for personal gain and not the taint of personal gain, justified or unjustified, shall mar governmental decisions and actions, and that the public have confidence in the integrity of its government. Whatever decision is made on this ordinance is one that I will fully support. Every resident should rest assured that ethics violations will be considered fairly and promptly, and that those found guilty are properly addressed. That is not happening today, and it is clear to me that the State Ethics Board is the best way to achieve this. This is why I will be voting tonight to disband the Teaneck Ethics Board and have a fully impartial State Ethics Board with a staff of professionals and state resources addressing these issues. My support of disbanding the Ethics Board is based primarily on the extreme political climate of Teaneck. Sorry. It's okay. I like that. It is because when it comes to financial disclosure statements, Trenton, while slow, is capable of handling the matters that would end up at the doorsteps in an appeal anyway. It is because the board has been so dysfunctional for so long that the chair of the ethics board requested the council to disband it back in 2019. Chair Fold said in his letter, quote, "If there ever should come a real issue, it would probably be handled best by a third party, not by people who might know the people involved," end quote. Heidi Fuchs's public resignation at a council meeting because she was unhappy with the mayoral elections, and that for years there was no complaints to the ethics board, and suddenly after a very contentious election, there are at least 3 or 4 that I've been made aware of, are just some of the examples for the basis of my vote. In 2020, the local finance board issues and fined every individual who was required to file a financial disclosure statement and failed to do so in municipalities without ethics boards. Teanec's ethics board did no such thing. The Election Transparency Act, while I have many, many issues with, just reinforces my decision, as the governor's action regarding the elect commissioners are exactly what I don't want to see happen in Teaneck. Simply put, we cannot have an ethics board made up of people who are at risk of handing down decisions for or against those charged based on conscious or unconscious bias. This is an issue for which I have no concern with the state ethics board. I've heard from residents that they feel that disbanding the ethics board, we're not acting transparent. Transparency means open and visible, and it means knowing the reason and the basis for those decisions. It means holding their representatives accountable. Things that this new council have done from day one. I know there are many that do not agree with my vote, and I hear you, and I've listened to you, and I've conversed with you, and I will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Deputy Mayor G.
Yes, I just wanted to make a quick comment. Last time we met, I abstained on this vote, and I just wanted to provide clarity on why I did that. I am one of 3 council members who have a pending ethics violation. It was submitted anonymously and I think without any real reason. But because I have the pending ethics charge or complaint, I thought it would be best for me to abstain from the vote. That said, if I did not have that pending ethics claim, I would be supportive of tabling it. I, don't feel strongly one way or the other about whether or not we should or should not have an ethics board locally, but I think I would be open to hearing more from residents who do want to keep the local ethics board. It can't hurt to have the discussion. That said, I don't think we have the votes to support that. So I am, and because I have that pending ethics violation, or ethics claim, shouldn't say a violation, I am going to abstain again.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Karen?
I agree pretty much with everything Councilwoman Goldberg said. The ethics board, ethics charges are being filed at council people anonymously now. It seems like it's absolutely being weaponized, politicized, and that would be okay. Except that if somebody files a charge and they're not happy with the result of a local ethics, challenge it and take it to the state. There are pending charges. They have to be heard. And I think being heard by people that don't know the politics of what's going on in town makes those hearings much more fair. So I'm going to be voting in favor of disbanding it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Denise?
Okay, at the last vote, I voted yes, simply because I really had no problem with being reviewed by a panel of my peers. Being in a field that where ethics and grievance panels are very much commonplace, I personally rather to be reviewed by a panel of my peers. I'm really, however, not sure whether sending our ethics board to Trenton is the answer. However, I feel that it's unethical for people to file ethics complaints anonymously, of which I, in the last 2.5 months being in office, has received an anonymous filing. And I too, like Deputy Mayor G, will unfortunately tonight be abstaining because it's unfortunate. But I feel that it is, as has been said, it is being weaponized, and it's unfortunate. So, if it means taking it outside of our community where we have those that are in Trenton to make decisions, so be it. But I do, I had voted yes, and I intended to vote yes tonight, but I think I'm going to abstain simply because I believe it is being used as a weapon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I see that you unmuted. Did you want to say something, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to look forward to this vote. I look forward to ending this conversation, not continuing this conversation. This conversation has been going on for several months. We hear from, I love agreeing with Mr. Abbott, so I will miss seeing him at every meeting where he supports this, but we've been talking about it. And contrary to Deputy Mayor G's comment, I don't believe there's anything more to talk about. And I look forward to taking the vote on this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I agree with everything Hillary and Karen said. Also, moreover, there are over 525 towns that use Trenton for their ethics board, so I will be supporting this as well. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion to approve both?
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Schwartz.
This is 10 and
Roll
17.
call.
I think both. Yeah, 10 and 17, correct?
Was that motion from Councilman Goldberg, second from Councilman Schwartz?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Roll call.
Councilman Schwartz,
Yes on all.
Councilwoman Belcher, noted. Councilman Goldberg,
Yes on both.
Councilman Organ,
Yes, on both.
Deputy Mayor G,
Abstain on 10, yes on 17.
Mayor Began,
Yes to both.
all adopted.
The next order of business is good and welfare and public input. Any member of the public wishing to be heard at this time shall come forward and state their names for the record. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, and good and welfare will only be 60 minutes long tonight. Is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak? Mr. Rose, I see your hand going up.
Good evening, Council. Howard Rose, resident. I don't know where to start. Cryptic notes that I can't read and a font size that's too small. You have an agenda before you that's pretty heavy. Eggs and cannabis. I don't know what your direction is. Is it a chicken in every pot or a pot in every chicken? Where are you going with this? You'll make a decision tonight. That's not my focus. My focus tonight is going to be good and welfare from last month. I have a couple of concerns regarding it. Michael, you made a couple of statements that I hope can be interpreted differently than what I'm thinking about. You said to people during good and welfare, is there anyone who wants to speak about something that we have not yet brought up? And then further, you said later on, you had your hand raised to discuss something that hasn't been brought up. What that really does is it tends to discriminate against people and not let them speak their piece. Now, even when someone agrees with something, it can be from a slightly different perspective or a different nuance, and they have a right to express their opinion. To pick and choose and select based upon topic just doesn't seem appropriate during good and welfare. On a personal note, at the end of good and welfare, I had my hand raised and I was not allowed to speak. And I objected to that, as you heard. Out of turn, I regret. But I said, I've been waiting 3.5 hours to speak. And your response was, you've already spoken, Mr. Rose. Well, I spoke on ordinances, yes, but I did not speak during good and welfare. And I felt as if my right to speak was restricted. I was disenfranchised. And I just don't think that was appropriate. Now, part of your needs may have been to terminate the length of time during good and welfare. And part of that reason, I guess, is we had 40 minutes of presentations by 3 people. You don't have
meetings in between the regular meetings, workshops. Maybe that could alleviate some of the problem. Or you could have restrictions on people who are making presentations in terms of a time limit. I and others have 3 minutes. Now, I know they can't make a presentation in 3 minutes, but 40 odd minutes divided by 3 people seems to be an extremely large amount of time for this to take place. Michael, I've seen you at work. I think you can do better because I've seen you do better. And I'm hopeful that things will change under your direction and that we'll have the opportunity for people to continue speaking within the restrictions that are normal. I like free speech and I take advantage of it, and I hope others will as well. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Doug, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Bring in Sebastian Castillo.
Just a moment here. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Great. Thank you very much. And good evening, everybody. My name is Sebastian Castillo. I'm a local resident. Good evening, members of the council and local neighbors and residents. I'm coming here to present as I usually do on the topic of cannabis businesses in town. First and foremost, I'd like to extend my thanks to everybody involved for a successful expungement event that happened at the Rhoda Center 2 Saturdays ago. The event demonstrated that the town is committed to both social equity and also to a local civic engagement around cannabis that seeks to include everybody. Again, as one of the first 11 dispensary license awardees in the state of New Jersey, I still continue to work on the steps needed to get open and operating. It's still my hope to work with TNEC to open in town, whether that's on Alfred Ave or in another location. As local applicants and operators, my team and I, as a key part of our approach, is incorporating other passionate locals and experts to prepare as best possible a team to operate a cannabis business in TNEC or elsewhere locally. It is my hope to introduce some of these local voices into our ongoing conversation. That includes some local experts that I'm working with, as well as some people such as Mr. Wesley McWhite from the CRC, who was at the expungement event on Saturday. I think bringing in a lot of expert voices might develop this conversation in a great direction. I'd also like to take the opportunity to share that, while I'm not suggesting any locations at this time, I have been actively working to look at possible areas available in TNEC that would be suitable for a dispensary. I have secured multiple letters of intent to secure a retail location, but of course, any deal is pending zoning. We've been doing everything to identify and secure a retail location that fits a lot of the criteria for a dispensary. I have a few that are promising with ample parking, and they're more than 500 feet from any primary or secondary school, public or private. And also, I'm encouraging, like other towns have been doing, to put these dispensaries in a place with good visibility where they're safe and patrollable. It's my hope to attend the next meeting in person and that we can possibly advance some of the conversation about bringing cannabis to TNEC, whether that's on Alfred Ave or beyond. Thanks again for your time and attention, and I look forward to the next meeting and any possible meetings I can get with the cannabis or zoning subcommittee. Also, I'd like to take this time to ask if there's any update in the process of getting a cannabis attorney on the RFP in terms of getting guidance on that as a continuation from the public forum and the conversation we have going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone in chambers? Mr. Brown, I think I saw your hand go up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris Brown, Bell Avenue. To start off, I just want to say thank you very much to all of you who voted to approve the Beverly Road box culvert. Thank you especially to Dean, who coordinated the emergency purchase that helped expedite the work. My neighbors and I appreciate your efforts and the updates throughout the process. For those of you who drove by Beverly Road, Councilman Organ, and saw the culvert chambers all lined up together, I think we can all agree that it was an impressive piece of infrastructure being placed underground. And looking at it, I can't blame anyone who looked at that and said, this will fix whatever flooding issue this neighborhood has experienced. It's tempting, but it's also sobering when you read through the town engineer's report from early 2022 that did a great job examining and communicating the problem. If you've looked at the drainage study, you'll see that the larger watershed includes our neighborhood between Windsor and Garrison, starting from Beverly and extending north past Route 4 close to Englewood Avenue. And up in the northwest neighborhood, it generally follows the same width as our neighborhood. So when it rains, all of the water from two whole neighborhoods drains down a 36-inch pipe on Bell Avenue and makes two 90-degree turns before running south through the Beverly Road parking lot. The drainage study had a great metaphor. It's like what happens if cars are driving on a highway and suddenly there's a 90-degree turn. But water isn't like cars that just slows down. When the system can't flow, the water doesn't drain, and that's when our street starts to flood. And over the last year, I've observed it. It doesn't flood right away with heavy rain. It floods after the heavy rain when all the water from the neighborhood north of Route 4 drains down to Bell Avenue. So yeah, looking at the chambers lined up on Beverly Road, it's impressive. And yes, it'll absolutely help in many instances. Last summer, I may not have lost my car during a summer storm. It's 40,000 gallons. It's a 40,000 gallon capacity system. So then that's a lot, and again, it'll help. But the engineer's report didn't recommend the culvert. The culvert's a short-term solution. The engineer's report recommended a 90,000 gallon detention system at Sagamore Park as phase 1 due to Sagamore being uphill from the choke points. And yes, Green Acres rules require a diversion before we're able to legally put stormwater tanks in municipally owned open space. It's ridiculous and infuriating that the state's creating a barrier for towns to adapt to climate change. And this is a climate issue. But the rules do allow for towns to enter into a lease so that we can begin construction while the diversion process is playing out. And if that's too much of a leap for the majority of the council, and we can agree to disagree on that, then there's no reason why the town shouldn't be awarding a contract to an engineering firm to design the stormwater system at Sagamore as soon as possible. Planet's getting warmer, storms are getting heavier, and we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Otherwise, we're just waiting around for another Ida where Bell, Beatrice, and Esther Avenue basements take on several feet of water from the neighborhood up the hill.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Clerk, is there anyone on Zoom?
I have brought in Sandy Silverberg. Whenever you're ready, Sandy.
Okay, can you hear me, Doug?
Loud and clear.
Very good, thank you. Good evening, council. First item, no chickens, please. The avian flu virus might well be giving rise to illnesses in other species. That is, it has zoonotic potential. Teaneck is not farmland. No chickens, please. For the life of me, I cannot imagine why anybody would disparage the senior center directors. That's what I heard recently, and that's what I've read. The science is simple. COVID is still an evolving problem which poses particular challenges to people over 65 and people with compromised immune systems. Yes, the virus has mutated from a very virulent form to a less virulent but more easily vaccine avoidant form, the XXB.1.5. Who can predict how it will continue to mutate? As a person who studied biochemistry, in particular tRNA, I have been watching the evolution of decision-making pass from the realm of the ridiculous in 2020 to the hands of science, and then regrettably to those of business, religion, and worst of all, politics. The senior center shut down like all the municipal buildings. It began to resume some programming where the directors thought it to be safe, minimizing risks like limiting class size and requiring proof of vaccine and masks. Unfortunately, COVID has evolved into a form that escapes the vaccine rather readily. Because the staff cares about the citizens, certain precautions are still being taken, thank goodness. There are now classes, exercise classes, craft, language, literature, art, improv. True, there are no super spreader events, things like parties and luncheons or other activities that bring people too close together. Does it mean that they are off the table forever? No, certainly not. Does it mean that the staff is guided by science? Yes. Has there been an outbreak of COVID at the center? No. Has there been a caring, sincere effort to balance offerings with caution given the age of the population? Yes. Am I grateful personally for the classes I'm lucky enough to be able to attend at the present time? Yes. Rather than tearing down the center, I challenge the folks who've expressed negative thoughts to help find solutions that are scientifically safe and reasonable. And I would hope that people would also exercise caution when it comes to environments that are particularly and overwhelmingly open to senior citizens, because I am one. Thank you very much, Council. Have a good holiday.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Silverberg. Anyone in chambers? Dr. Yuck?
Good evening, Phil Yucht, Teaneck resident, Bell Avenue. So I just want to comment on what Chris Brown just said about the Bell Avenue flooding situation. I feel, first of all, the tank that's supposed to go into Sagamore Park is 100,000 gallons, not 90,000. The 90,000 gallon tank is supposed to go under the Beverly Road parking lot. So there were a number of things besides even the tanks that were proposed by the engineers. At the last budget meeting, I talked about a lease through Green Acres, and I don't know much about that. I don't know how that works, but apparently the attorney was misinformed, because he stated something like a lease is impossible because the town owns the park or something like that. But I believe several of you may be going to visit, go to Trenton to visit the people at Green Acres, and I can assure you that they will explain to you how the lease process works and that the town can get a lease. If you get a lease, that gives you 2.5 years to get the paperwork in. And if you have good engineers, it shouldn't take 2.5 years to get the paperwork in. You'll also have to pay $124,000 to Green Acres unless you can somehow convince them that there's some reason why you shouldn't have to pay that. On the other hand, if you have to pay that, you can give up maybe a ½ acre of land and call it public space, and you won't have to pay a penny to Green Acres. So I think that's something that you ought to keep in mind as you visit them. We would like this done sooner rather than later because we know that with climate change, anything is possible. And you see what's happening throughout the country with all these storms and tornadoes. The other thing I wanted to talk about is Cedar Lane. Cedar Lane, the store owner that spoke at one of the previous meetings talked about the trees on Cedar Lane being dead and Cedar Lane being depressing. It is admittedly a depressing center of a town. I've lived here for a long time. It was very vibrant at one time. It's not a vibrant place. I've been complaining both to Dean and to Mayor Pagan about the trash on Cedar Lane. I can tell you, I recognize the trash when I walk my dog on Cedar Lane. It doesn't get taken away. Some of it has gotten cleaned up. But also, there's trash along Garrison Avenue that builds up. This stuff, it's just not cleaned up. It's embarrassing, quite frankly, for people walk on Cedar Lane and it's just full of trash. And on top of that, and I have 5 seconds, I'd like to see some greenery planted at the parking lot where the culvert was put in, because it was all taken out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yup. Mr. Clerk, someone on Zoom?
I am bringing in an A. Grodko.
Hi, my name is Eliza, and I'm calling in support of introducing the chicken ordinance tonight. It's been a very long time coming. This is a great ordinance. It promotes that the people who want to get backyard chickens, which will likely be probably 4 to 6 families, take a class, learn what they need to learn, ensure they are using good hygiene, limiting any negative effects of owning animals. and be able to have chickens, have eggs, build community with this lovely, lovely act. And again, please vote yes to put in the ordinance. You know, it would really be appreciated by me and my family. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone in chambers? Sir, in the back?
How you doing? My name's Sean. I'm a business mogul.
Your last name, sir, please?
Sean Perry.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a business mogul. I accomplish a lot of different things. I'm the guy that slept outside for a few months. The reason why I bring this up is because one of the companies that I started is a company called Bad for Business. And it sort of kind of helps out this guy's issue with some of the things that are going on around the city and businesses, and this guy's complaint about, you know, the tanks or whatever. When situations of such nature happen, a lot of times, not only, you know, individuals who come to these meetings, they have a lot of different issues. Some people don't know about the town's issues or to come in and like speak up on things. And some people don't understand there are certain laws and ordinances and so on and so forth, and policies that business owners in the city has to abide by. So when people don't understand those things, you have a company like mine that comes in and regulates certain outcomes and structures to help the city grow as well as the people grow. A lot of these things that take place, for example, right now I'm working on something where there was an issue with a location that's right down the street where they were, they literally, you know, had a bunch of junk littering in front of a location that shouldn't be, you know, it's actually a school. I'm not going to point out the exact school, but point is that they know better. They know more so of the policies and the regulations that say, well, hey, when you're taking care of, you know, whatever trash or whatever's going on, you know that it has to be taken care of in a certain manner and in a certain way. There's a certain structure in the way things should be taken care of. When they're not taken care of, well, then that's when there are certain regulations that need to happen. And that's where I come in. I come around and I say, well, hey, this is wrong. Reason being is because a lot of times when the city gets busy, when people get busy, they ignore a lot of aspects. Like, for example, this guy pointed out, the trees look horrible. A lot of the different things around the area, it looks horrible and it's not being maintained. And in that case, you know, because there's so many different things that go on in the city, no one actually stands up to deal with it. Or even like you can go into some of the restaurants and some of the locations around the city, and they're definitely not taking care of any of the regulations that the businesses normally are supposed to handle and take care of or maintain. And that's a whole nother structure and finances and so many other things, which I will eventually speak on. But that's exactly what I'm here for. So I just wanted to introduce myself and say hello. And if you guys ever need any help, that's what I'm here in.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Around to do.
Thank you,
Like I
Mr.
said, I
Perry.
do a lot of different things, but as well as you spoke on marketing.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. You too. Mr. Clerk, someone on Zoom?
I am bringing in Jesse Leon.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
1 second, Jesse. Give me a check. 1, 2.
Check 1, 2.
Can you raise the volume?
Yeah, we're raising.
You got me.
I don't think it's you, Jesse. It's us. Give me another 1, 2.
1, 2.
Give me another 1, 2,
Count to
3.
5, please.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, you're on full blast in here, so we're just going to be quiet for you, Mr. Leon. 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I've returned to my Zoom roots tonight. I saw that Ellie and Mark were going to be absent and remote, so I figured I'd join. I want to encourage you all to introduce Ordinance 2023, the chicken ordinance, obviously. It's a good ordinance. It takes care of every issue that's been brought up. It is approved by the town health officer. It will finally put this issue to bed. I think that like the ethics board, it's something that Councilman Schwartz is tired of hearing of. So if you all vote to introduce it tonight and you pass it in 2 or 3 weeks from now at the next meeting, we can put this to bed and you'll never have to hear from me again. That's something that I can promise you if you introduce that tonight and you pass that in a couple of weeks. So again, it requires classes for people before getting their licenses. It has coop requirements, it has structure, it has enclosure requirements to make sure that chickens aren't running into neighbors' yards. It has everything that you could possibly need for the 4 to 5, maybe 6 families in this town of 41,000 people who will actually go out and purchase chickens so that their neighbors won't be bothered by them. And if they are bothered by them, there is recourse. Please, I urge you, let's finally do this. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Leon. Mr. Addison, I think I saw your hand up, sir.
Good evening, Council. Ray Addison, resident of Teaneck. I just wanted to say that I was very pleased to hear the gentleman speak about the trains, because that's very important. As I spoke last time, the trains that run through Teaneck, Englewood, Teaneck, Dumont, Ridgefield is very important, because if we have an accident, we all lose. In our houses, we won't have to worry about chickens. We'll have a bigger problem because our houses now, most prized possession will be worthless. I wanted to thank the manager for all he does to make sure that things run well in Teaneck. He mentioned that they will be doing street sweeping on Cedar Lane. While I believe all of the quadrants in Teaneck are important, Cedar Lane is very important, but also Teaneck Road from Tryon Avenue to Route 4 is very important as well, because I consider that the gateway to Teaneck. There's more traffic on Teaneck Road than there's on Cedar Lane. People see Teaneck Road and they think that's Teaneck, and it's not. So the same attention that you give to Cedar Lane, you should certainly try to give it to Teaneck Road, with the trash, with the garbage. The parking lots are normally littered with paper. The garbage pails are overflowing. We need to make a better presentation for Teaneck, because Teaneck is where we live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Addison. Doug, someone on Zoom?
Bringing in Lillian Lewis.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Miss Lewis. 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, the word tells us, give honor where honor is due. In a professional setting as a council meeting, when one addresses council, he or she should be addressed by his or her title. In particular, when one speaks to the mayor, one should say Mayor Pagan or Mayor, but not Michael. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Mr. Abbott, I think I saw your hand up, sir.
Tom Abbott, still in Teaneck. I know Mark thought I had had enough of ethics, but I have a couple of more things I wanted to say. One is that currently there are 5 ethics complaints, 3 of which are anonymous. 2 to our council members. The other anonymous complaint was against Javon Rice, filed when she was a council member. If those had been sent to the local finance board, no one would ever have been told about them except the people who got the complaint when they were dismissed, because complaints can't be anonymous. The other thing I'd like to say about the local finance board is it is short 2 members. And it would be good if anybody interested would encourage the governor, perhaps through our representatives, to appoint the last 2 members so they could operate with a full complement of members. I'll also say about chickens, I agree with many people. I'd never like to hear about them again here. And while I have no interest myself, I'm hoping that that will pass and we will hear no more until somebody decides they would like to keep a turkey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Mr. Clerk, someone on Zoom?
Bringing in Jim Dunleavy. Please unmute whenever you're ready, sir.
Is that for me, Doug?
Oh, yes, loud and clear, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is for Mayor Dunleavy, and I wanted to speak about ordinance 23 regarding chick. Vote was against proceeding with chickens. My feelings about this are the same as they were then, and I did have some issues pertaining to this ordinance. First of all, the proposal does not ask or does not account for the need, I think, to give notice to the neighbors of those who are asking for these permits, and thus give them the ability to comment and weigh in prior to the issuing of those permits. Similarly to what we do with renovations and large building projects here in town. Because the chickens or other fowl or other animals of the sort in the backyard, they are essentially an environmental renovation of that area. It also appears that from this proposal, the health department will make inspections only based on complaints. And I wanted to know whether or not they're going to do an inspection based on permit renewal. In section 6-5B10, you mentioned where the owners must report sick or unexplained bird deaths only to state groups. And I would like us to see that our township health officer is part of that reporting mechanism. Also, as we do for dogs, will the health officer keep a file of complaints in order for the township residents to have access to? I also see that you're creating a new advisory board that is being given two tasks: to create a class, a self-limiting activity in and of itself, and to educate the public on chickens. I believe that both of these things can be done under the health officer, and I don't believe that an advisory board needs to really be formed to do this. Needing singular tasks performed are not the reason why advisory boards should be created. We had that in the past, and our code was littered with single need advisory boards that did one task, completed their work, and then did nothing for years, but they were still in our code. We need to stop throwing advisory boards at every single issue we have. You have other time limited alternatives in the current code that I put in when I redid the code that would meet the needs here and not gum up our township code again. I would like you to consider to go back and think about doing a task force and or a committee rather than an advisory board. And I think that you also have to consider the fact that perhaps you're not hearing all the negative voices to this because they don't show up at meetings or they don't come, but you will certainly hear it once we start to have complaints. So I thank you for your time and have a good evening. And I hope everyone has a great holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see a very cool LSU shirt, sir.
Great night, everyone. Shay Lewis, Township resident, and I'm here to keep in your consciousness some issues concerning some developments or proposed developments at 61 Church Street in town. One in particular is there is a proposal for a high school to be built at this location, which is currently a for lack of a better thing to say, a decommissioned church. And that's probably not the best of descriptive, but nonetheless, it's a non-functioning church. The proposal to build this high school or to convert this structure into a high school, one, would greatly increase the air and noise and light pollution around the homes in that residential area. Another issue would be the Town zoning codes require 11 acres to construct a proposed high school. 61 Church Street is only 1.3 acres. So there's a very large, I'm not going to say variance, but there's a very big difference in the application that is proposed for that location. And also, the town building codes require a minimum distance from other public places of public assembly, to be 1,000 feet. Yet this school, or this conversion to a school proposal, is only 175 feet away from another school. So there's a bunch of other issues that are on play here, but just to keep these issues in mind, as there is efforts to convert this structure into a school in a residential location, and there are residents in that area that oppose this, and we just want to keep that in your consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Doug, someone on Zoom?
Bringing in Barry Obut. Please unmute whenever you're ready. Please, Barry?
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, Barry. 3 minutes.
Okay, it'll be a lot less than that. My name is Barry Obert. I'm a longtime resident of Teaneck, nearly 40 years. I am in favor of people being allowed to own backyard chickens. I've read the ordinance. I think the ordinance is adequate and it protects people's interests. And I'd like to see it get introduced and passed and voted on. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Rogovan.
Hi, Paula Rogovan. I know there's going to be a forum about development, but I just want to speak about it now anyway. I'm opposed to development by variance, and I'm opposed to AINRs, areas in need of redevelopment, and using that to decide what we're going to have here in Teaneck. I came a few hours ago from the Martin Luther King March, the anniversary of his murder, his death. And the issue of environmental justice is on my mind always, but in particular today. In the new state law on environmental justice, both the Northeast, where 61 Church Street is, and the Southwest, where the Stop and Shop AI area is, and that proposed AINR, those are both on the state map, environmental justice communities. You can look it up yourselves. I can send you a copy if you'd like. That means that any kind of development in those areas is subject to a environmental justice review, particularly on the area of pollution, the issue of pollution. And if you look at, say, 61 Church Street, it's near the trains. So is Stop and Shop, near the trains, the pollution from the trains that are idling day and night. 61 Church Street is near Route 4. It's near the medical waste incinerator at Holy Name Hospital. It's near Teaneck Road, which is one of the few streets in Teaneck that allows the big trucks. There's a tremendous amount of pollution in the northeast of Teaneck. There's building a school, you would get pollution from the buses, pollution from parents dropping off, picking up their kids, especially coming to pick up their kids where they're sitting for a while waiting for the kids to be dismissed. So those issues of pollution are really serious because of the impact, the health impacts of pollution. And we really must take that seriously. The same is true in the Southwest where some of us live, Michael and I. And putting in 3 new buildings that are 6 stories high with all the traffic, all the congestion, all the pollution from that mixed in with the existing pollution that area is something that is going to be under review, and we're going to make sure it's under review for any kind of development in those two areas. When people complained about development in the northeast, they were ignored.
Thank you,
And
Paula.
we're not going to let that happen again.
Thank you, Ms. Rogovan. Doug, someone on Zoom?
Bring in Keith Kaplan.
Mr. Kaplan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. One of the members of the public already brought up the application at 61 Church Street, and I wanted to speak to that application for a moment. The location of the application is marked here on this map in blue, and they are correct. According to the code, it requires 11 acres in this area. This area in red is also the community school. According to the code, it requires no acreage, zero, none whatsoever. And the reason is important, and it's something that we need to deal with as a municipality. In 1964, there were no requirements in the blue area or the red area. There were no requirements anywhere. You simply had to meet state code for an educational facility. That changed several months after we integrated our school system. And if you read Mr. Dameral's book about the integration, as opposed to the mythology that tends to erupt from the dais or the microphones, the council and the people were not as in favor of this plan as everyone else. They voted 2 anti-integration members onto the Board of Ed out of 3. They were majority of council was against the efforts. And within months of the integration efforts, they created these new zoning rules. The zoning rules called for 11 acres in this area. Now, it's also worth noting that in 1973, the area at 61 Church Street was applied for as an alternative high school from the Board of Education and was granted by the council for a special use permit. At the time, they had to go year to year, and it was granted by the zoning board, and it was granted by the council to be used as a high school for 100 students. Now, if you go and take a look at the requirements that they set, they would require Teaneck High School to have an additional 10 acres merely to exist. These rules were created because they did not want the type of people that would be moving into this town to move in. The rules were hidden. They are not easy to find. You need to look at underlying rules which reference 3 different locations, subsections in various places. It doesn't make it any better. There may be reasons not to approve the school. There may be reasons to approve it, but the requirement of 11 acres was done to prevent Blacks coming to Teaneck from having a place that would easily be a home to them. It is still in our code. It shouldn't be.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Thank you. And I don't mean to interrupt good and welfare, but council is going to discuss amongst itself at the next meeting whether members of the public are allowed to share images or maps or anything, because in the past, some might have, but it's something we're going to discuss, and we'll let the public know.
Mr. Mayor, I just suggested to the clerk, I think there's a way on Zoom to prevent anyone from the public from sharing anything. We just don't promote them to panelists. You just allow them to be a speaker. No, this is something we've had discussion on before, but we have to talk about the.
Yeah, we'll talk about it again
aspect of it
at the next meeting.
Mr. Mayor, just for really quick clarity, people have shared a background screen, not a whole
I
PowerPoint.
know. We're going to talk about it. Let's keep good and welfare going, and council will discuss it at a future date. Actually, anyone in chambers want to speak? Seeing no hands, Mr. Clerk, anybody else on Zoom?
Bringing in Michael Klatsky.
All right. Good evening, Council. Mr. Clerk, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. Okay, so tonight I want to talk about two issues. I want to talk about and echo two of my fellow citizens regarding the Bell Avenue Sagamore Park flooding remediation situation and Cedar Lane. So first, one of my neighbors brought up the topic of a lease to Green Acres, or in a Green Acres regulated facility, and I think that there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what this means. The state law in New Jersey allows a municipality to enter into a lease with another organization if that organization is going to use Green Acres regulated parkland. So normally, this comes up if, let's say, the township of Teaneck would like to lease a small place inside a park to, say, a cafe, right? That's a diversion of parkland, which is intended to be used as parkland. You're making it a concession. That way you can enter into a lease with the consignee, and there's a process for that. The town would have to compensate Green Acres and so on. In this particular instance, obviously, we're not getting a cafe. A flood retention tank of 90,000 gallons, not exactly a cafe. However, the legal mechanism to enter into a lease still stands. So that means that the municipality can create a flood remediation corporation that can enter into a lease with the township of Teaneck. And Green Acres, the law regulating Green Acres allows this sort of activity. In fact, some of the folks at Green Acres actively recommend this to municipalities at the New Jersey League of Municipalities meetings and things of that nature. Second, okay, so we talked about Cedar Lane. So for many years, the Cedar Lane Management Group has been the one tasked with doing this. They kind of function as a chamber of commerce. As many of you are aware, Cedar Lane does not have a special improvement district that allows for taxation of the merchants and property owners on that street, so that there can be an entity that takes care of Cedar Lane. We kind of rely on kind of this volunteer basis. Some of you may know that the gentleman who used to do this task of taking care of the street, taking care of the greenery, unfortunately, this particular individual passed away several years ago. And right now, no one takes care of it. There was discussion about a street sweeper going to Cedar Lane. As far as I know, and I've seen, is that DPW employees only work during the day, which in my experience working, in municipal operations, generally we send street sweepers to clean commercial streets in the middle of the night, typically like 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and so on, because all the parking spots are empty and deserted at that hour. Obviously, your DPW employees, you're going to pay them double overtime for that? I don't think so. So there needs to be some mechanism that needs to be thought out here in terms of how to take care of Cedar Lane. It's not fair for one particular business owner to be picking up trash blown from down the block. That's going to just, he cleans it up. It's going to be new trash tomorrow. It's not fair. It needs to be a coordinated approach. The best approach is through a SID, a special improvement district. In lieu of that, the Cedar Lane Management Group can do it, but some mechanism needs to be implemented here. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Klatsky. And Mr. Clerk, someone else on Zoom?
Shulamite Schwell. Sorry, Shulamite. Please unmute. Please unmute, Shulamite. Please unmute, Shulamite. Shulamite going once, going twice. Lower left corner, unmute. I don't know if I trust you, Phil. I'm sorry.
Maybe we'll go to someone else and come back to her.
Next.
Nobody else on Zoom? Anyone else in chambers? All right, maybe Dr. Yuck, how do you say your name? Shulamit, are you there? Thanks. Please feel free to email us, or you can always please feel free to call me on my cell at 201-543-7671. Seeing no further hands, good and welfare.
Schwell, are you there? I saw you put the hand down, then put it back up.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
The floor is yours.
You have 3 minutes.
I just wanted to be very quick. Again, of course, talking about the chickens, I am in favor of the legalizing the chickens as well as having the chicken advisory board. I think it would be a great idea to reduce the cost for the health officer part. So please vote for the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That brings good and welfare to a close. Does anyone on council wish to speak? Denise?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some 55 years ago today, we lost Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to gun violence. Today, we remember Dr. King for his life of service in dismantling racial injustice on so many fronts. He imagined a world free of inequities, and we can imagine a community that showcases our best and brightest ideas, innovations, and most importantly, our people. Thank you to our residents for applying to serve on advisory boards. We've received an influx of a number of applications, and we thank you for your service or pending service. I'd like to mention that there is on May 2nd at 7 p.m. a Development Town Hall Forum at the Rota Center. Please do come out because we want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts, your ideas about development within our town. There is going to be a survey that will accompany this. Please participate in it once you receive it. It will be sent out. We do ask that in order to participate, you submit your full name and contact information in order for you to be able to participate, because we truly want to know and hear from you. I want to thank Chris Brown and Phil Yuck. I believe that we're making efforts, positive efforts on Bell Avenue. I think it's vitally important that we continue to monitor and look for every best opportunity we can. I also want to mention the revaluation. Many of our homeowners have received the reval letter. I know I did. I would ask that on the 2 upcoming reval meetings that you're planning, Mr. Manager, that perhaps we could record them for those that might not be able to attend, because, you know, revaluations are mandated by state law at least every 10 years. So that it's an effort to match assessed value to as close to market value as possible. So we don't really know, we don't have a crystal ball as to what that's going to look like, but most people think that your taxes are going up. So as much information that we can provide our residents, I think we'd be better for it. I want to thank a few people that spoke tonight. Thank you, Ray Addison. Teaneck Road is truly the gateway to Teaneck. That was something that was coined during the redevelopment effort. And I think that all 4 of our business districts need attention. So I thank our town manager for looking and finding those opportunities, actually hiring a person that's going to, really help our businesses to potentially thrive. So we all have to put our heads together to find ways in which we can, improve our 4 business districts. Lastly, I want to thank Tom Abbott for your details and numbers on the ethics complaints. I think it's important that people should know that our 5 complaints, 3 of them against women. I want to thank Shay Lewis because I think it's very important to point out a community's concerns when it comes to 61 Church Street. I want to also thank Ms. Rogovan for pointing out that 61 Church Street is in an environmental injustice designation. And I think that's important for people to know from a pollution perspective, noise, congestion, etc. Lastly, I'd like to just say regarding chickens, I'm so glad that our health officer has discussed this, and she has weighed in terms of the issues of code enforcement and not really having enough inspectors to address the issue. But one thing I do think it's important to mention, I think we are all looking at health, but I think we have to look to the building department as well. Because when you think about when a neighbor wants to put up a fence, you have to go to the building department to mark a survey to show where that fence is going. So why wouldn't we request that for a chicken coop? because people want to know exactly where things are within their backyard and so forth. So I really am, I'm at a point where I'm not quite certain I'm going to vote in favor of chickens. Do believe we need a little bit more insight in terms of, regarding it. But thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Organ?
To Mr. Leon, I love the summer beard. I'm still a no on chickens, and this particular ordinance I actually like less than the previous ordinance. I don't like the idea of an advisory board made up of neighbors who are going to educate or police. I think if we're going to allow chickens in our yards and in our neighbors' yards, that should fall under the health department. I think the health officer should be responsible for that. I also don't like the part where it says they can run at large if the yard is fully enclosed. Makes me uncomfortable. I agree with Councilwoman Belcher. 25 feet from a door or window, 25 feet from a property line, but 3 square feet per chicken and a maximum of 6 chickens. I feel like zoning really should weigh in on this. I want to thank the people who sponsored and invited us to the iftar event last week. It was wonderful. It was really impressive to see the young adults who emceed the event. They were on the ball even when a balloon broke. Everybody was on their game. And I know when I fast, I'm usually lying on the couch at the end of the day. And it was really nice watching everybody break their fast over sweet treats and dates. And I'm so happy that we were a part of it. I've never been a part of anything like that before. I was very happy to attend the Terhune Park ribbon cutting or opening on Friday. It's a beautiful playground. I hope that everybody in town has a chance to go see it. It's very different than the other playgrounds we have in town, and the manager and the recreation department, Glenna, did a great job with it. Today I had the chance to tour the garden club. I never knew where it was. I never knew it was there. I'm so happy. I feel that they've brought me into this little part of their family. It's really, really hot inside, and they absolutely need a new roof. And I just want to wish everybody happy Easter, happy Passover. I hope we can all celebrate together. And I wish for more days like today, weather-wise. It was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Goldberg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rose, I hear your concerns on good and welfare and what you said about having workshop meetings with presentations at the workshop meetings. I do think will allow more residents to be heard. And I hope it's something that we can get to with my colleagues' support. Mr. Castillo, I'm glad that you found the expungement event successful. It was brought to my attention by a resident as an opportunity and something very important to me, given my academic background. Thank you, Dean, for helping with that as well. As myself and my colleagues have said multiple times, there will be no zoning until we have a cannabis attorney to address the process changes that need to take place. The RFQs are out, as the manager indicated earlier this evening. Tonight's first step on addressing some of the safety concerns the public has raised regarding cannabis and vape shops that could be addressed without an attorney are being introduced tonight, thanks to Councilwoman Organ. Once we have a cannabis attorney, the cannabis subcommittee is ready to get to work on the issues that must be addressed. Ms. Silverberg, I fully support our senior center being open and reinstating the food program and expanding classes and as many opportunities as possible for the seniors. As we walk in Teaneck, people should be proud of our town. We have heard from a number of residents tonight regarding litter in Teaneck, and that's something that's unacceptable to me. I don't know, Mr. Manager, if there's something that we can address regarding the litter concerns. Maybe we can do a Teaneck spring cleanup event, just throwing some ideas out there. Regarding the Church Street application, it is before the land use boards and not something the council can comment on. While previous council kept the acreage requirement for school for unknown reasons, with regard to the conditional use for a school in a residential zone, I am committed to reviewing the code with my colleagues as we start a new master plan to ensure that the development process is equitable. We hope that the new master plan will be developed by the community and for the community and will address many of the development issues that have been raised. And the plan will address the development issues to ensure that everyone is welcome in Teaneck with a well-defined master plan. And Mr. Kaplan, this isn't a classroom. You're free to post your PowerPoint on your Facebook group. I wouldn't even oppose you using something as a background, as a member of the public has done in the past, but this isn't your private history class, and it is my individual opinion that no member of the public has special privileges to present a PowerPoint during good and welfare without express permission. Dare I say, might even be unethical. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Schwartz.
Yes, thank you very much. Two brief things. First of all, I fully agree with Ms. Lewis. To address, the mayor gets addressed by Mr. Mayor and or by mayor and not by his first name. That's something that felt weird to me as I was hearing it, and I appreciate Ms. Lewis saying that, and I wholeheartedly agree. Lastly, two things to Mr. Klatsky. If I heard it right, and if I didn't, I apologize. Dave Bosch, who cleaned Cedar Lane, did not pass away a few years ago. It was actually a few weeks ago, maybe by now about 2.5 months ago. And I thought you said that Cedar Lane is not a SID and not taxed accordingly. It is actually a SID, a special improvement district. It is taxed. If you're looking at the tax bills, you'll see it's special improvement rates are assessed to every property on a portion of Cedar Lane from approximately the railroad tracks down to about Catalpa, give or take, a little bit before Catalpa. So if I heard you wrong, I apologize. If not, it is, and there is money for garbage collections. But yes, that individual sadly passed away about 2 months ago, and they are working on replacing him. With that, thank you for everyone who came out, and happy holidays to everyone who is celebrating.
Thank you, Councilman. Deputy Mayor G.
First of all, I just want to say shout out to Dean and Doug. I'm not sure who's responsible for the new video display, but it is awesome. I particularly like the notation of the commentary on top. Oh, okay. Shout out to our volunteer, what's the right term? Video
volunteer cablecaster, Mr. Ron
Ron.
Goodman.
Ron, it is amazing. I love it. I'm sure the public loves it. I appreciate the notation of what we're talking about on the front there and also the speaker name. So congratulations on that update. Howard Rose, just wanted to say thank you for sharing your concerns about good and welfare. I agree that all residents, particularly those who show up in person, should have a right to be heard. I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the scheduling constraints. We are working behind the scenes to ensure that we don't have such heavy schedules so that we can hear from all residents. So know that we are considering the workshop meetings. Chickens. Thank you to all who came out in support of chickens, opposing chickens. I also hope that we can get past chickens. The one question I had, and we can discuss this when we get to the ordinance, is given how contentious this item is and that we don't have all 7 council members here, I wonder if today is the right time to vote on this. I would love if all 7 of us could really chime in on this one. Phil and Chris, thank you as always for coming and sharing your concerns and updates. I trust that our township manager is on it. We continue to, be really on top of what's going on with the Bell Avenue water climate concerns. Finally, I just want to also address the sharing of materials on Zoom. It really is a privilege to be able to participate in these meetings via Zoom. I think we are the only town in Bergen County that still allows hybrid meetings. And so I want to ensure that the experience that folks have in person is the same as the experience that we have in Zoom, and that we're not allowing special privileges to those who are signing on in Zoom and taking special advantage. So I really think that was inappropriate, and I hope that we find a technical way to avoid that in the future. Happy Passover, happy Easter to those celebrating. Have a wonderful holiday weekend.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Rose, I appreciate your comments, and I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I made those comments because that was one of the meetings that went to midnight and or 1 a.m. And it was not my intention to upset you, because I love free speech too. And that is why I offered to meet personally with anyone who did not get an opportunity to speak during that very late evening. And thank you to everyone who spoke and participated at tonight's meeting. Happy holidays to everyone. And Mr. Manager, is there anything you would like to say or add before we move on, sir?
Just sure, quickly, I have spoken to Joseph Gillers, chair of the EC, a couple weeks ago, and I suggested that the EC tackle a town-wide cleanup day. So I know he will be working on that. DPW was out every day with their compactor trucks emptying the waste baskets. People just seem to think it's okay to throw litter in the street, on the sidewalks. I'm kind of disappointed But I will speak to the Director of Public Works to make sure that, not only Cedar Lane, but Teaneck Road is hit by the street sweepers during early morning hours. We already shifted their assignments earlier to avoid parked cars and traffic. So,
And we do that for all our downtown districts, don't
Yes,
we? Because I've seen them on DeGraw, I've seen them everywhere.
yeah, so I'll come up with some other ideas just to make sure things are a little better kept. But I, certainly need the public's cooperation as well to put trash in the baskets.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature by council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If any discussion is desired by council, that particular item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the amount of the bill list into the record?
Indeed, Mayor. We have our consent agenda this evening, 4 sets of minutes, resolutions 100 to 112-2023, and the bill list in the amount of $2,399,175.27.
Schwartz, motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Clerk, we have a first and a second. Can you please call the roll?
Councilman Schwartz,
Sorry, yes on all.
Councilwoman Belcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes on all.
Councilwoman Organ,
A recusal on 106-2023, and yes on the rest.
Deputy Mayor G,
Yes on all.
Mayor Began,
Yes.
all approved.
All righty, the next order of business is our introduction of ordinances. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the title of the ordinances into the record, sir?
Absolutely. We have 4 ordinances this evening. Ordinance number 20-2023, amending Chapter 6, Animals and Fowl, amending Chapter 2, Council's Advisory Boards, and Schedule 3, Fees and Charges of Chapter 2 of the Township Code pertaining to the keeping of chicken hens in the township. Ordinance number 21-2023, amending Section 36-11.2 of Division 1 of Article 2, Chapter 36, entitled Traffic of the Township Code, deleting restricted on-street parking spaces for the handicapped at 1 Ave. We have ordinance number 22-2023, amending Section 36-11.2 of Division 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 36, entitled Traffic of the Township Code, adding restricted on-street parking spaces for handicap at 437 Glenwood Ave along Favory Terrace. Last but not least, we have ordinance number 23-2023, amending Chapter 31A of the Township of Teaneck respecting vape businesses and cannabinoid products.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Does anyone on council wish to speak before we call for a motion? No? Do we have a?
Make a motion to, we will vote one by one. What are we doing here, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry.
I was just,
Councilman Schwartz, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was gonna make the motion to introduce, but vote one by one if we can.
You want to do it one by one? All right. So we start at the very first, Mr. Clerk? Do we have a second on the first ordinance? I'm sorry,
So-
we have a first. Do we have a second? Yeah.
And that first,
So-
just to remind, this is
No.
ordinance 20. That first was from Councilman Schwartz, right?
No, I'm sorry, I'm voting no. I'm sorry, I was going to get the roll call going is what I meant. I apologize. I'm gonna be voting no on number 20.
Wait, we still need a first and second.
I'll second.
And that first was from,
It was Mark, wasn't it?
I'm reversing that first. I meant to start to make a motion to start the roll call. I apologize. So I'm not a first on number 20.
I will be the first to introduce it.
thank you, Councilwoman. Was there a second?
Second.
That was Deputy Mayor G, right? For just ordinance 20, first from Councilwoman Goldberg, second for Deputy Mayor G. Roll call, Councilman Schwartz,
No.
Councilwoman Belcher,
no.
Councilwoman Goldberg.
Yes, this is the chicken ordinance. Yes.
This is the chicken ordinance, yes. Councilwoman Organ,
No.
Deputy Mayor G,
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes. We're still doing these ordinances one by one, correct?
Yes.
Is there,
Ordinance 20 is not introduced.
is there a motion to approve ordinance number 21?
Motion on 21.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
For just 21, Councilman Schwartz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Belcher,
Yes.
Councilman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilman Organ,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor G,
Yes.
Mayor Began.
Yes.
Introduced.
We have a
Or
motion.
Motion,
approve.
motion to introduce 22.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz.
I second.
Councilman Schwartz,
Yes.
Councilwoman Belcher,
Yes.
Councilman Goldberg, Councilman Organ,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor G,
Yes.
Mayor Began.
Yes.
Introduced.
Motion to introduce 23.
Second.
Councilman Schwartz,
Yes.
Councilman Belcher,
Abstain.
Councilman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilman Organ,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor G,
Yes.
Mayor Began.
Yes.
Yes, all introduced.
Motion to
have-
adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on Zoom and in person. We appreciate you all, and we hope you have a happy holiday. Thank you.